practice, and about 1,000 of them spread across the public sector and as in-house solicitors. Those 2,000 solicitors in private practice are housed within around about 500 firms. That comes and goes as new firms open and firms amalgamate and perhaps people retire. And the majority of firms in Northern Ireland probably have somewhere between 2 and 10 solicitors. There are still some solicitors who are sole practitioners, general practitioners, and there are several firms in Northern Ireland who would have 30, 40, 50, 60 solicitors. And within my firm, we have around about 100 solicitors, a little bit more. Some days, maybe 1 or 2 fewer. Other days, as being such a big firm, people do tend to come and go, but we're actively, thankfully, on the way up. So what does the Law Society that we're talking about here do? Well, broadly, it has 2 roles. It has a representative role. I suppose you might almost call it a wee bit like the trade union for solicitors, but it also has the regulatory role, and that's ensuring that solicitors, being a solicitor is a regulated profession, and it ensures that solicitors are playing within the rules. So on the representative role, what do we do? Well, I'll give you some examples. We would liaise with the executive, with the Department of Justice. We would liaise with organisations like the Legal Services Commission. People would know that maybe as legal aid. We respond to consultations. We actively assist members, and we provide solicitors with education and CPD, or continuous professional development. So all of that side of things is our representative side. And then with that, however, we also have a regulatory side. Now, if you were a solicitor in England and Wales, that would be entirely separate. So there would be a separate body there called the Solicitors Regulation Authority, or Regulatory Authority, the SRA, and it regulates solicitors. But in Northern Ireland, we're a small niche jurisdiction, only 3,000 members, and the Law Society regulates the profession of solicitors. So what do we do? Well, we make sure that the solicitors work within the rules and within the legislation. We ensure that they comply with the Solicitors' Accounts regulations, how they treat client money and how they treat office money. We ensure that solicitors work in compliance with the Solicitor's Order. Solicitors handle clients' money, and so the government has designated us one of the sort of the guardians of the gateway. So we have to be compliant with anti-money laundering regulations. We can't just take tens, hundreds of thousands of pounds, if not millions of pounds, from clients without knowing where that money comes from, because it could potentially be proceeds of crime. So we ensure that solicitors act within the Home Charter Scheme, and that's for buying and selling houses. So how do we do that? Well, what we do is we actually have inspections. We have targeted inspections, but we also have regular inspections on all of the firms in Northern Ireland. And we have fully qualified accountants, for example, within the Law Society, who go out and visit the firms, check through samples of files. And in doing that, we're ensuring that solicitors comply with their regulatory obligations. We also look after the professional conduct of solicitors. And one of the things that Anne will describe a little bit further is what's known as the character and fitness test. So professional conduct, that could be anything from finding that a solicitor has dealt incorrectly with client money, perhaps has used client money temporarily for their office needs, which is obviously illegal, and we would then have to deal with that. But it could impact even on things such as a solicitor who's caught drink driving. So Anne will elaborate on this, but right from the point where you guys are now, you want to be thinking about your own character and fitness, and how anything you do could impact on you down the line on entering the profession, because these things are looked at. Now, another thing I'd like to maybe talk about is who are our members. So I said that there are approximately 3,000 members, but who are they? Well, they're all solicitors. They're all solicitors who are on the roll, and these are solicitors in private practice, working in all sorts of law. They could be working in litigation, in criminal law, employment law, public law, judicial review. They could be dealing in property and conveyancing. They could be dealing in corporate transfers. They could be working in commercial law, working on contracts, drafting contracts, reviewing contracts. They could be working in family law, or they could be a solicitor, for example, who specialises in personal injury law. So there are so many different areas of law that you could end up working in. And more the profession is becoming specialised. There are still some sole practitioners out there who are general practitioners, and they do a little bit of litigation, a little bit of conveyancing. But I would say that as time goes by and the solicitors are more tightly regulated and expected to know every little nuance of the area that they work within, the profession is becoming more and more specialist. So then we have, that's the sort of the 2/3 of our membership. We then have 1/3 of our membership who are in the public sector or in-house roles. So they're working in government departments. They might be working in the public prosecution service. They could be working for one of the hospital trusts, advising them on medical negligence cases. They could be an in-house solicitor working within a local council, advising the council on all sorts of different things from planning and environmental laws. We then have solicitors working within the Crown Solicitor's Office and within the Departmental Solicitor's Office. And then a much more recent phenomenon in Northern Ireland. It's been going on across the world an awful lot longer, but in Northern Ireland, the in-house solicitor, it's a much more recent development. Yes, there have always been in-house legals, maybe in the banks and maybe in some very big local businesses, but we're now seeing them more and more. So, we find that some of the larger construction companies have their own in-house lawyers. As I said, the banks, financial institutions, organisations like TransLink, who run the trains and the buses, they now have a team of in-house lawyers. And we're even seeing solicitors being employed in some of the film and TV production companies. So I suppose what you can see from that is that the options for work at the end of it, yes, you might be a solicitor, but the profession is so diverse. And I think if you can't find an area, within the law that you would like to practice in, well, maybe the law isn't for you at all, because it is so diverse that really there is something for everyone. So if I could maybe round off by giving a little example of my own career progression, and you'll see how you just never know where you're going to end up. So I finished a law and accountancy degree at Queen's, and I worked for 6 months on a building site in Dublin, wheeling wheelbarrows full of concrete on the building site. And you might say, how does someone who spent 6 months wheeling wheelbarrows of concrete on a building site in Dublin end up as a partner in Carson McDowell and, being head of, debt and insolvency? It all sounds very grand, that title, but I'd just like to maybe use myself as an example that you just don't know where you're going to end up. I started practice in a small local firm in West Belfast. I practiced there for 3 years. A job came up in Carson McDowell, which I suspect a lot of people might have looked at and thought, jeepers, do I really want to look after the TransLink prosecutions in Northern Ireland, prosecuting people who haven't paid for their tickets or have put their feet on the seats? But I saw that as an opportunity to get into Carson McDowell. I took that job, and really throughout the last 20 years, I've worked my way through 2 or 3 different things. But about 5 years ago, I decided to specialise in insolvency, bankruptcy, and a little bit of debt recovery. So I suppose what I would say from that example is there are so many opportunities for you out there. You don't know where you're going to end up. You don't know which sliding door is just going to slide the right way for you. Yes, you do need a little bit of luck sometimes, but really what I can say is that there are just so many opportunities out there, even in this small jurisdiction in Northern Ireland, that, what you guys are doing now, a fantastic degree with fantastic opportunities out the other side of it. So with that, I think I will hand over to Anne, and she can hopefully take it from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Okay. As Darren said, I'm head of the professional development department in the Law Society, so it deals with anything you need to know about training and qualifications. So if you have any queries at the end of this, you're welcome to contact me at any stage. I'll put my name in the chat box and the Law Society website, so you will have those which you can access. There are 2 things I want to talk to you about this afternoon. One is about the format of the apprenticeship, and the second one is the application process, or how do you apply to do your training. So those are the two things I want to focus on. But what I want to do is give you a quick overview of the steps to qualify. Now, I'm sharing my screen at the moment. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see that on. Yep.
Great, thank you. So the quick whistle-stop tour. Then the steps you need to qualify. Can I just say, by way of background, you would think that the United Kingdom and Ireland are a relatively small area, but within that small area there are 4 separate legal jurisdictions, and each legal jurisdiction has its own training regime. So you've England and Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and the Republic of Ireland. So that's 4 separate legal jurisdictions, each with their own separate jurisdiction and own separate training regime. So I'm going to explain the training to become a solicitor in Northern Ireland, and I'll go through that with you. There are 5 steps you need to qualify as a solicitor in Northern Ireland. You need, first of all, to have a recognised law degree or a degree in another subject plus a recognised conversion course. So that's something like a Master's in Law from Queen's. The second step is you need to apply for and secure a place at the Institute of Professional Legal Studies at Queen's. That's where you will do your 2-year professional training to become either a solicitor or a barrister. You need to find an office in which to complete your training, and you need to apply to register as a student of the Society. Step 3, you begin your professional training, and that's a 2-year apprenticeship or a 2-year traineeship. And you will be based partly in the office and partly training at the Institute of Professional Legal Studies. And then once you manage to get through your 2 years of training, you will hopefully have passed all your exams and met all the character and fitness requirements, and you can then apply to be admitted to the role of solicitors. And then once you're admitted to the role of solicitors and have been allocated your roll number, you're then official and you can then act as a solicitor. So that's the 5 stages. And the 2 I want to concentrate on today are step 2 and step 3. So it's I'll be taking them in reverse order. So first of all, I'm going to look at the format of the apprenticeship, and secondly, I'm going to look at the application process. So looking at the format of the apprenticeship, first of all, it's a 2-year traineeship. It generally starts in September and lasts for a period of 2 years. Now, the format of it has been slightly skewed for the last year and the coming year because of COVID. We've changed the dates, but on the basis that we'll be back to standard form, hopefully in 2022, that's the format I'm going to give you. So it's a 2-year apprenticeship, and the first 4 months of your training, from September through to December inclusive, will be spent in the office. So you'll be gaining experience of seeing clients and seeing how cases work and how offices work. And then your next 1 year will be spent at the Institute of Professional Legal Studies. So that's from January through to December. And your Easter holidays and your summer holidays will be spent in the office. And then your final 8 months of your 2-year apprenticeship, that's January through to the beginning of September, will be spent back in the office. So it's a 2-year course. If you think of it a bit like a sandwich course, you have 4 months in the office and then a year at the Institute with your Easter and summer holidays back in the office. And then the final 8 months will be spent back in the office. So the idea of the integrated system is that you gain experience in the office, and that will help you to see how practice works, what life is really like as a solicitor, all the things they don't tell you about at university. You'll then spend a year at the Institute learning rules and procedures, but you'll also get to learn the skills that you're going to need in practice. So that's drafting documents, solicitor advocacy, negotiation, interviewing clients. And during that 1 year at the Institute, you will have a chance to put into practice, when you're back in the office, the things you learned at the Institute. And the benefit of having the integrated course is you get a chance to see it in real life and to test it out and see how it works. But while you're at the Institute learning your skills, you're going to have a safe, risk-free environment in which you can do role plays and actually practice how to use these skills. And then you finish with the final 8 months in the office, which will bring together hopefully everything you've learned in training. The Law Society also teaches a number of courses in the 2-year traineeship. 2 of them are examinable, that's solicitors' accounts and professional conduct. We also teach other things such as the regulatory end of solicitors' practices, information on client communications, client complaints, professional conduct. So the key thing about the integrated training is that it is integrated. It's a partnership between the office and the institute, and the Law Society is involved in your training as well. So the idea is that you will get a rounded general training. So that's the format of the apprenticeship. And I was actually at a conference just last week, and it had representatives from the Law Society, or from practice in England and Wales and Scotland. And the integrated model that we have here is actually very well regarded. One of the key things that they were talking about and that students were very keen to have were to learn skills, and a key focus of their training was a focus on employability. And in England and Wales, the system is disjointed. So you have your training, your sort of academic training, followed by your training contract. And our integrated blended system has a lot going for it. So if you're thinking of training by going to the Institute of Professional Legal Studies and doing your traineeship, you've a good set of a good training system ahead of you. So that's the format of the traineeship. Next thing I want to talk about is just the application process. So if you are looking to finish your degree in, say, June 2022, you will need to start applying the year before. So if you're finishing your degree in June 2022, you will want to start applying to the Institute of Professional Legal Studies in September 2021. So the first part of your application process is to get your application into the Institute of Professional Legal Studies. Their application process usually opens in September and closes in the middle of November. If you get your application in early, there's a reduction in the application fee, and the closing date is usually around the 15th of November, and there's no no exceptions or buts, or, oh, I'm sorry, I missed the closing date by 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a day. They are very firm and very fixed. The application closes on the date, and that's it. It's an online application process. So if you want to apply for either the bar or the solicitor's course, make sure you get your application into the Institute of Professional Legal Studies on time. They have a very good website, and the admissions section on it gives you everything you need to know in relation to it. So first of all, then you need to apply to the Institute. The application process closes about the 15th of November, and you then will sit your admissions test for the Institute in December. And the results from the admissions test are usually out in the following March. And then you have to find a master or a solicitor's office in which to carry out your training and register with the Law Society by usually the middle of August. And most people will be engaged in looking for a firm to take them on from, say, any time from January through to right through to the closing date for registration, which is sort of the middle to the end of August. And once you find a solicitor who is willing to take you on and act as a master, you complete a set of application papers, registration papers for the Law Society, and lodge them with the Law Society by the middle of August. And there's a couple of things to bear in mind. Darren mentioned character and fitness. So in addition to the, I suppose, academic requirements, where you're required to have a recognised law degree or a degree in another subject plus a conversion course, there's also a character and fitness element. So you have to disclose to the Law Society and to the Institute whether you've any previous cautions or convictions, or any previous academic offences, such as plagiarism. And it doesn't matter whether it's a spent conviction or not, because you're applying for the profession of a solicitor, you need to declare everything. So you will, if you have been, we've had situations in the past where, someone in their university years may have been found guilty of disorderly behaviour or assault or any number of offences. Thankfully, there are not that many. You have to declare that, as I say, on your application form. You will then receive a letter from the Law Society asking you for further information, and you may be invited in before the Education Committee for interview to give a description as to what happened. And bear in mind that all that will be taken into account, and your application to register as a student may be refused on the basis of on the character and fitness element. So we have a character and fitness policy which is now available on the website. You can go into the Law Society website, and I'll put the address up. Just put in character, and you'll get the character and fitness policy up. So some of the things that the Society will take into account are whether you've had any criminal convictions, matters of probity and personal integrity, and that includes things like being found to have cheated on exams or serious or repeat findings of plagiarism, and all that will be taken into account. Obviously, the greater number of offences you have, or the seriousness of an offence will be taken into account. The circumstances of the actual offence itself, what the penalty was, all that will be taken into account. So just bear that in mind when you're thinking of applying, before you go out celebrating your exams and get into some sort of bother that you shouldn't. But as I say, the character and fitness policy is on the Law Society website, and it sets out clearly what the requirements are, and I can happily have a conversation with anybody on a one-to-one basis in relation to it, but just to make you aware that that's something that's taken into account. It's not just a matter of passing your exams. So that's the application process, and the key thing about the application process is to make sure that you get your application in within the timeline. So when the applications open from the Institute of Professional Legal Studies in September, get your online application made before the closing date, which is usually about the 15th of November. That would be that part satisfied. Then make sure you find an office in which to complete your training and register your registration papers with the Law Society by the middle of August. It's exactly usually 2 weeks before the first Monday in September, but it's easier to say the middle of August, just to keep you on the right tracks. So that's the application process and the format of the apprenticeship. I think that's probably me finished. So if I know we're having questions next, so happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Yep, thank you, Jan. And yeah, there has been a few questions coming through the chat here. We've had a head start on some of these with Darren and Andy sort of coming back, which has been great. But let's see if we've got any. I know you were discussing there and just some of the checks and that sort of thing, sort of the criminal checks. And one of the questions there was, are driving offences included in those checks? Is that sort of how rigid would that be?
Yes, driving offences have to be declared, and you will probably be asked to give further information on it. It depends on the nature. It depends on the nature of the offence. I mean, if it's a relatively minor offence or penalty points, I mean, that's not going to. I can't give you a definitive decision because it's the Education Committee will make the decision. But as an indication, in a very general sense, that's unlikely to be a bar to registration as a student.
Yes, I think, Anne, I could give some practical examples there. So,
Great.
We regularly get people admitting that they were caught doing 37 and a 30. And, those people have usually no difficulty getting through if that is the only thing they've ever done. On a different committee that I sit, we had a solicitor who was caught drink driving and got back in his car as the police tried to stop him and sped off. And there was a half-an-hour chase around part of Northern Ireland. And it's safe to say that guy's no longer a solicitor in practice. So there are the two extremes. Some people will fall somewhere in the middle. So you're under an obligation to disclose any criminal offence or caution that you have, and that will then be fully reviewed, looked at. You might be asked in for interview, you might be asked to explain yourself and just how serious that is and how you've dealt with it, and whether or not you've taken on board what you've done are then all taken into account as regards the decision as to whether or not you're allowed to take up a training contract. So look, don't not apply if you've once been caught doing 37 and a 30. I think it's safe to say.
Yes.
Great, thanks, Darren.
There's a question there. What are the fees for the Institute of Professional Legal Studies? They are approximately £10,000, give or take £100 or two. So they're about £10,000, and that is the fee for the 2-year course. A little bit that you should know about that is that some firms will, as part of the training contract, cover the fees. Some won't. Some firms just, on taking on an apprentice and paying their wages, it's as much as they can afford to do. They simply couldn't afford to pay the fees for the student. So sort of, be aware there are some firms out there paying fees, some who aren't. Now, one thing you should also know is that, and I've come across this through chairing the education committee, some of the banks are actually very understanding to young professionals and have specific loans for professional development fees. And I'm not going to point anybody in any direction, but if you go and approach your own bank or approach banks, there are banks who will specifically look at young professionals who are looking to get into a career which has a good career progression, and they do offer some attractive loans. Sometimes they will say that you maybe pay your interest whilst you're in training for a couple of years, and then you'll start capital repayment on the loan after that. But do look into that. Yeah, it's not cheap, but if you compare it with maybe training as a doctor or going on and doing an MBA, or going to England to some of the law schools in London, which are twice that, it's in my view, it's a good investment.
And just in the other section, I referred to fees as well. The fees I was referring to was the application fee that you need. Now I don't have the amount of the fee off the top of my head. I think the application fee is just about under £300, but it's available on the Institute of the Professional Legal Studies website. Go into that and look for admissions, and there's a reduction on that if you book early for your admissions test. In fact, thanks. If I get the website up,
if there's Alana had asked there, can you apply to as an international student, and can you get a visa for IPLS? Do you happen to know that?
I don't know. That's a matter for the institute.
We have IPLS coming in, Alana, tomorrow in one of our sessions, so hopefully we'll get that picked up during that session. Any other questions there that haven't been asked so far? Feel free, guys, if you want to raise your hand and ask the panel directly.
Somebody had asked, how is cold calling, emailing perceived by your individual firms, whether for internships or full-time work experience? I would have to say that's probably quite a common method of contacting firms, and I know many solicitors, for example, will say they feel they don't need to advertise a training position because they've already been inundated by quite a lot of cold calls, if you like, and just CVs being sent to them speculatively. So it's certainly fine, Darren, as have you views to what?
Yeah, well, Andrew made a good point there. Andrew answered it in the chat, saying that you'll be possibly referred to the graduate recruitment team, and yes, in all of the sort of the larger firms, that is precisely what will happen. Now, in some small firms are 3 solicitors and 2 secretaries, and that's it. So if you send in your CV with a nice covering letter, marked for the attention of the recruitment partner or whatever it might be, that's precisely how I got my first training contract, because I left it far too late. I actually didn't realise in my last year at university that people were recruiting almost a year ahead in my mind, I thought, well, why would anybody be recruiting before anyone's got their results from the institute entrance exam? Surely people need to know if they're in the institute or not before they can apply. So I was a bit late off the mark, and I think I sent about 70 letters with my CV in the post with stamps on them 20-something years ago. And I got 5 or 6 responses, and I got 2 or 3 interviews, and I managed to get one of them. So look, whatever you can do to get yourself out there and put your name out there and get your CV out there is good. There's nothing ventured, nothing gained a lot of the time. But what I would suggest is that there's a very careful line to tread between being proactive and seeming over keen or desperate. So just try and strike that balance right. And, I think be careful not to make the person that you're approaching feel almost like they're being pestered. So there's just a careful balance to get right there between being interested in something, getting your CV in there, getting your application in, and seeming either a little bit desperate or hassling someone. So, but look, keep at it is the real message, and don't be afraid, as I said in my chat, to maybe be prepared to be a paralegal for a year. And I know that it might seem that a year is a very long time to delay your career, but I'm in my mid-40s now, and looking back to my early 20s, it really wouldn't have been that much of a delay. And I know it's easy to say that to you guys now when you're young, but if you have to take a year out and be a paralegal, if you have to take a year out and do something, don't be afraid to do that, because in the grand scheme of your career, a 1-year delay to get in somewhere that you really want to be is really not that much.
And you can learn a lot of other skills during your year out, which will actually stand you in great stead, rather than going straight on immediately from university into the solicitor training. So there are advantages to it as well, although it may not seem like that at the time.
Well, thank you, Anne. And Darren, I know that Anne had given me a heads up that you might have to.
Yeah, I do have to head on fairly soon. I just see one thing there. So Demi Edwards has asked, what are some items on a CV that would stand out? And believe it or not, but my 5 months working on a building site in Dublin actually stood out of mine, apparently, because the partner who employed me said it was all very well and good that everybody had a great CV and everybody had all their academic capabilities and qualities. But what that said to me was that you were prepared to work hard. So you just don't know what's going to be the little thing that gets it for you.
That's good advice. There was another question there about the admission test as well. Is there a cost to do the admissions test?
There is.
That's £300 that Anne was talking about.
Yeah. And if you apply early, there's a reduction on that.
Reduction on that. Okay, great. Well, thank you, Darren and Anne. And I know that Darren has to head off fairly shortly, and you're very welcome to stay and sort of be around for sort of the next stage of Q&A as well. We'd love you to stay around. At this juncture, I am going to introduce Andy, who has been waiting patiently on screen there, and just to hopefully not steal your thunder the way I did with Darren. But I'm just going to give you a little bit of a prelude, Andy. So Andy joined TLT in 2015 and as a planning and environment partner in the firm's UK-wide team, heading up the Belfast practice. He is also a training master for the Belfast office and oversees the future talent plans in Northern Ireland. So we're speaking to the right person from TLT. Clearly, he has worked in Northern Ireland since 2006 and is recognised in both Chambers UK and Legal 500 as a leading lawyer in planning, environment and clean energy. He has been involved in many of the most significant development projects in Northern Ireland over the last decade, including wind farms, waste treatment facilities, major residential and commercial developments, fuel storage facilities, electricity transmission infrastructure projects and road schemes. Andy also advises on enforcement proceedings, appeals and judicial review proceedings in Northern Ireland relating to planning and environmental matters, and provides advocacy in planning appeals and the Magistrates Court. So that's a great intro, Andy. You're clearly busy and in a really interesting area as well. I think the environmental area is one that's been probably gathering more momentum and attention recently. So I think our graduates will be particularly interested to hear some more from you on that.
Great, yes. Thanks very much, Carl, I've got if I can share my screen here without messing things up.
Yeah.
Right, let's see how, bear with me a second. So hopefully.
Yep, we can see that, Andy. Yep.
You can see those slides. Great. Right.
Perfect.
Well, yes. So as Karl said, I'm a partner at TLT Solicitors based in Belfast. And I'm also the training principal, the training master for the firm. So I'm heavily involved in recruitment and the training of our trainees every year, which is actually a really enjoyable part of the job. It's really nice to kind of see the sort of diversity of applicants that we get in and recruiting people and seeing them through to qualification and then on to their careers. Yeah, it's a really nice thing to do. I suppose just looking at myself, and again, this goes back a bit to what Darren was saying about how you never quite know where you're going to end up. In terms of my own career, very briefly, I did a biology degree. After that, didn't particularly want to leave university, so carried on and did a master's in oceanography for a year. Then I spent 4 or 5 years working in the public sector as an enforcement officer for the Environment Agency, then decided to go back and study and do law. And I was lucky enough to get a training contract with CMS Cameron McKenna, as it was then, in London, qualified there, worked there for a few years, and then for sort of family reasons and quality of life, moved over to Belfast and been working here ever since. And I've worked in a couple of other big firms in Northern Ireland as well. So it's, you know, having worked in the city and then having worked here, it's in many respects the work here is just as challenging and just as interesting. Might some of it be on a slightly different scale, but still very, very worthwhile. You know, a great place to live and work. So again, you can see it's how I started out in this was very, and where I've ended up, two very different things. And also, in terms of my career since I've been over here, I was very much a specialist in planning and environmental law around development. But then the property crash happened in 2008. Had to diversify, got into renewables, which was the next big thing in Northern Ireland, and so that was another sort of area of specialism that had built up over the years. So again, you start off with one thing, and you know, you're never quite sure where the path is going to take you. So enough about me. A little bit now about TLT as a firm. So really all I'm going to do is just sort of give an intro to the firm, the sort of work we do, look at our Northern Ireland office, and then Anne's very helpfully talked about the training process from the Law Society side. So I'll give you a bit of an insight into how we deal with it here, as long with our application process. So who are TLT? Well, we're a top 50 UK commercial law firm that works across all the UK jurisdictions, headquarters in Bristol. We've also got offices in London, Manchester, Glasgow, and Belfast. It's an interesting firm to work in. I think we have quite a sort of progressive and forward-looking attitude, and I think as a place to work and launch a legal career, there's a lot of opportunities, lots of different areas to specialize in, which I'll talk a little bit more about, the 7 sectors that we operate in. And I think one of the things that I found interesting about TLT is that they're always sort of looking for the next thing that's coming along. Particularly, we do a lot of work in the clean energy sector, and so a lot of the focus of the firm has been on, well, you know, we've done a lot of work in solar and wind and those kind of things, and you know, what's next? What are the next big things that are coming along the line? Looking at energy storage, electric vehicles, hydrogen, all those sort of things. So again, very interesting and dynamic. As I say, we've got the 7 locations. So we're a big firm, 145 partners across the whole firm, over 1,200 employees. A big portion of that is in Bristol, but all the other offices are growing at an increasing rate, including over here in Belfast. So the key sectors that we operate in, clean energy is already spoken about. We also sort of work in digital, so that's really how that cuts across sectors, whether it's kind of blockchain issues or whether it's IP in terms of new sort of digital startups, financial services. So that's again across the whole banking sector, the sort of normal run-of-the-mill work for the major banks, right through to the much more sort of exotic, different sort of lending institutions, leisure, food and drink. So we've got big practices again right across the country dealing with that sector. Public sector, again, another big focus, an increasingly big focus at the moment. We would work for a lot of local councils, a lot of the UK government departments. We'd also work for the Metropolitan Police and utilities as well. Obviously, real estate, a very big sector, particularly over here, involved in a lot of sort of major land transactions, big and small deals right across the country and into Ireland. And then finally, the retail and consumer goods sector, and that, for example, there's a big crossover there with digital, with a lot of the move now into the sort of digital realm for retail. In terms of the clients that we have actually within Northern Ireland, this is just a selection. I think some of these that you will be familiar with as local successful businesses, and also we would act for some of the major businesses such as Sainsbury's and the BBC. Very, very diverse range of operations and clients, and we've been working very hard over the last few years to sort of build up the business. And one of the things about working for a national firm is that you sort of have the benefit of being able to have that sort of scale and expertise like right across the UK to service those big clients. But we also have a very locally focused service here. I think there's maybe a bit of a misconception that some of the national firms that are now operating in Northern Ireland are really sort of back office operations for sort of national or international work, and that is true of some of those firms, but other ones, including ourselves, whilst we do UK-wide and sometimes European work, very much our focus is on building the business in Northern Ireland and acting for clients within Northern Ireland. And for me, that's one of the great appeals of it, is that I mean, one of the things I particularly like about working in Northern Ireland is it tends to be a bit more up close and personal. COVID aside, clients like to sort of meet you in person, and there's a lot more of that sort of dealing with things there. You're not just a sort of voice on the end of the phone, but also we get involved in very large national transactions. For example, for me, for the environmental work that I do, a lot of that is over in sort of Manchester or London on big development deals and acquisitions over there. So it's almost like the best of both worlds. But I have to emphasise the Northern Ireland practice is that the key part of our strategy over the next few years. So in terms of the Belfast office, so TLT originally opened in 2012 in the Scottish Provident building, just by City Hall, with one rented office with 3 fee earners servicing some national clients. The practice then grew very rapidly. We moved into Montgomery House, which is sort of just down by the Garrick, is probably the best known focal point around there, and we were in those offices for a number of years, and then we finally moved into these purpose-built premises in Riverhouse on High Street in 2019. We've now got, well, that says 70 staff. I think we're probably nearer now to sort of 80, 85, and looking to expand. Great. Really nice to have sort of proper purpose-built offices for us. It's all open plan, so it's a really nice working environment for people, very collegiate. In that way, people have access to partners and other staff. Doors never close because we don't have any. So that's very good for sort of working in collaboration across teams, makes for a good atmosphere. So as I say, we focus very much on the Northern Ireland market, but we can draw on sort of UK-wide expertise, and we're very much here to sort of grow, and our target is to be one of the major local law firms in this jurisdiction. So the core practice areas we have in this office will be real estate, commercial litigation, corporate banking. So really those, I suppose, are kind of the core aspects that you would expect in a large commercial law firm, and then we have more of the specialised elements, such as myself with the planning environment. We also do insolvency and employment, and we're sort of looking to branch into other areas as well, and so have that sort of core expertise plus all of the other the sort of slightly more niche areas that are becoming increasingly important for our clients here in Northern Ireland. So what I also want to just give you a quick run through is how we operate our application process. I've been involved in graduate recruitment both here and in previous firms. So in some respects, what we do here is very similar, I think, to what you would see in the other large commercial firms, and is very much, I think, becoming the norm. So first off, we have an online application process, and there's sort of really there's two routes that can go down. First of all, we have, and it's worth mentioning, we have a vacation scheme which we run in early September. So it's 1 week with a firm to try and give a real insight into TLT and the clients. You get involved in real work, meetings, and getting to network with other lawyers in the firm. We ran it successfully last year online, obviously because of COVID, but fingers crossed this year we'll actually be able to do it in person, or at least part in person, which would be brilliant. And through the vacation scheme, that effectively allows you to, I suppose, leapfrog the first part of the other application process, which is putting in the CV and covering letter to sort of put yourself in for selection for the full day assessment centre. So we would have normally running towards the end of the year this full day assessment centre, which is basically involves an interview, psychometric tests, a presentation, assessment, but there's also other aspects to it. We try to give you an idea of what the firm is like. There'll be sort of presentations and talks with some of the members of different teams, and there's a lunch with the trainees who are already here, so you can get an idea of what their sort of day-to-day working life is like. And then we for the successful candidates, we offer the apprenticeship through the IPLS as Anne has run through. Normally we're now taking on 4 trainees a year, and we've done that for the last couple of years. And again, we have a rigorous selection process because we're selecting people, and our view right from the outset is that if you're a trainee in the firm, then we're training you because we want to retain you as qualified solicitors and let you sort of grow with the business. So the focus is very much on on the ground training, very much at the coalface, getting involved in the transactions and deals, meeting clients, going to court. Yes, there will be photocopying. If you're a trainee, there will always be photocopying. You can't get away from it. But that is certainly not the core of our training program. It's very much about getting you to the situation where you can qualify and you're effectively hitting the ground running. So right from the get-go, we give our trainees a lot of responsibility and good working with the partners and other senior members of the team. So you really get a good feel for the different areas of the firm. So just in terms of the dates there, so we've got the vacation scheme. The applications are open now on the website. Deadline's 30th of July, and that will be for the week of 6th of September. And then the apprenticeship process applications open in August, and we're looking at having the assessment centre in or around the 8th of November of this year. Certainly early November, I think, is likely. So, well, I hope that gives you a bit of an idea about what TLT is and who we are, which I hope is of interest. And obviously, I'm sticking around, so very, very happy to answer any questions that you might have. So please fire away. Right, hopefully I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Hi folks. Yep, sorry, I had a few technical issues on my side there. So thanks for that. So thanks for that, Andy. I'm glad you're sticking around. We are going to have some more Q&A after Rosemary's presentation. So just as a brief intro, Rosemary is a Queen's Honours graduate in law and a partner in the employment law group of Arthur Cox in Belfast. Rosemary has extensive experience in all aspects of employment law with a particular specialism in equality, having worked as an in-house legal advisor with the Equality Commission for Northern Ireland before joining Arthur Cox. Rosemary provides a full range of legal services to employers in all matters arising out of the employment relationship. Her practice area includes advisory work, commercial transactions, industrial disputes, and representation in a range of matters such as unfair dismissal and discrimination. Additionally, Rosemary advises on administrative and public law, in particular on compliance issues arising under Section 75 of the Northern Ireland Act 1998. So that's a little bit of a synopsis, Rosemary, and I'm just going to let you take on from there.
Okay, thanks very much, Karl. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, can hear you fine.
Okay, great. Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. Usually we're doing this in person, so it's a bit strange doing it remotely. I want to tell you a little bit about Arthur Cox, a little bit of the background to Arthur Cox and how we recruit people into the firm. I'm the trainee recruitment partner, so I've been doing this for 15 years. So I have tried and tested very many different ways of recruiting people to try and see what works best for you and for us. So Arthur Cox then, we're an all-island firm and we have offices in Dublin, in Belfast, in London, New York and in San Francisco. And our practice encompasses all aspects of Northern Irish and Irish corporate and business law. We are an Irish firm. We only deal with law on the island of Ireland. We don't do any support work for any other firms. We're a full service firm. And I think that's what sets us out and makes us stand apart from many of the other big firms in Northern Ireland. We provide a comprehensive service to an international client base, and they range from established global leaders and multinational organisations to government agencies and statutory bodies, public and private companies, banks, financial institutions, as well as to new players in emerging sectors. And, you will have heard of our clients because they are globally recognised brands and IT platforms and blue chip companies. So, we regard it as a privilege to work for clients of that calibre. In terms of what we are and what our size is, we have 740 staff, we have 530 legal staff, and we have about 100 partners. And we have just about every specialism you can think of. We have won numerous awards, and you can see all of that if you visit our website. However, it has to be said that our strength is our people. And it's our people who lead the way. And we are very proud to have been awarded Irish Law Firm of the Year by the IFLR Europe Awards in 2021. We have a very long heritage on the island of Ireland, and we've been at the forefront of developments in the legal landscape in Ireland for almost over 100 years, establishing one of the largest and most innovative law firms in the country. So having said that, who are we? What do we stand for, and what are our values? Well, Arthur Cox started the firm in 1920. In St Stephen's Green in Dublin, along with John McAreevy. And Arthur Cox played a key role in the early history of the Irish state, and he advised on the Anglo-Irish Treaty. And he's widely acknowledged as the architect of the Companies Act, as it then was in 1963. And I will briefly tell you that the Irish Times said of Arthur Cox this: "There are times when people realise the value of an experienced advisor who's prepared to listen to their troubles, to warn and to recommend. And those values remain true to this day. So listen, warn, recommend, are great things that you can do for any client. So what can you, as a student and a prospective trainee, what can you expect from a career with Arthur Cox? Well, a career with Arthur Cox will be exciting, absolutely, challenging, interesting, varied, undoubtedly demanding, and fast-paced. So we're looking for people that want that sort of challenge in their lives. As I said, you can read all about us on our website, but briefly, I'd like to just highlight some of our proudest achievements. Arthur Cox was a well-known philanthropist, and from our beginnings 100 years ago, we've always incorporated this ethos into the running of our business. Using the skills and expertise of our talented people, we want to have a positive impact in our communities, and we encourage and promote a culture of giving back to society and supporting educational development to those who need it most. Well, how do we do that? In many, many ways, and you will see everything on our website, but we have an exceptionally engaged CSR and volunteering group. We in Belfast support Fostering NI as our charity of the year, and we engage in a wide variety of fundraising activities, from fun runs, walkathons, pub quizzes, back in the day when you could go into a pub, of course. We also have a very strong pro bono commitment, and we are one of the very few law firms to have a full-time dedicated pro bono lawyer. And we put great effort into developing and maintaining coordinated, focused, well-balanced and meaningful pro bono scheme. So we provide free legal services to a wide range of clients, from individual refugees and social enterprises to not-for-profit organisations. That's something that our trainees and our younger solicitors in particular really love and really get a lot of reward from. We also have our Zambia project, which has been going on for a long time now, since 2008. This was set up in memory of Arthur Cox. He actually died in Zambia in 1965. And this project was developed by the trainees themselves. And they designed the project to raise the standards of living in some of the most rural regions of Zambia. And they did that by developing sustainable health, education, and agricultural infrastructure. And they did that hand in hand with the local communities. And the project has invested in healthcare, agriculture, and education since 2008. And we have sent 208 volunteer trainee solicitors to Zambia in 12 successful trips. And they raised approximately £600,000 to fund the project's activities. So that's an enormous achievement. The trainees and the firm all bear the administration and travel costs personally, and so every penny raised goes directly into the Zambia project and directly impacts those that benefit. So just moving on to you as students. So what can you expect as a trainee? I am the trainee partner, so I have put an awful lot of time and thought and effort into this. It's close to my own heart. So what we do is we provide you with a bespoke training program. So you will spend time in each of our departments, and in Belfast our departments are divided into 4 key areas, and that's corporate, finance, dispute resolution and property. So that you will do a seat in each of those departments, and that's where you'll learn on the job. In addition to that, you will be supported through our buddying and mentoring scheme, and then on top of that, we have I have designed actually a training program, and it consists of workshops. And the workshops, we did put some time into thinking, well, how best do we do this? So the workshops are from each practice area. So somebody senior in each practice area will give you a workshop, which will be very practical, top tips, things that it might take a trainee weeks to find out they can learn in 5 minutes. So trainees seem to enjoy those. It's great if they can get them before they move into the department that they're going to, because they can hit the ground running. And then on top of that, we have a soft skills program. So that's where you learn skills such as presentation skills, report writing skills, time management skills. And we deliver that through our external training providers, who I must say are really engaging and funny and really highly popular. Along with that, we have our Dublin office, and increasingly so during the pandemic, they provide weekly seminars on either new topics, new areas of law, new cases coming out, and it's good they do that by webinar, so that's a great way to link in with our Dublin office as well. As part of our trainee programme, we finish off with a visit to the Dublin office and with training in the Dublin office, which is delivered by our librarians, who are just absolutely phenomenal in teaching research methods, and our partners also make themselves available for insights into the life of a partner and life of associates in the Dublin office. So that's a bit of a quick overview of what training is like in Arthur Cox. On the social side as well, we realise that that's important, and we realise that that's an important way of integrating you into the firm as a trainee. And what our trainees have told us through feedback is what they enormously benefit from is arranging a social event before they actually come to join the firm. So what we do is we leave that up to our second year trainees, because they know best what the first years are going to like, and they arrange an evening out. So it can be things like a trip to the escape rooms or that sort of thing, and then followed off by a meal, a curry, pizzas, a few beers to round off the evening. So that sort of takes the fear out of trainees. At least they know a few friendly faces before they start. And then throughout the traineeship, there will be other opportunities to socialise as well with everyone, with the full firm. With the pandemic, we haven't been able to do that, of course, so we have to pick up on that again. Hopefully we'll be able to do that again this year. The one more thing I should mention as well, that all of our trainees then, our Dublin office trainees, there's about 50 of them, and our Belfast office trainees, they arrange a residential weekend away. And that is done by the trainees themselves. We don't know where they're going. We don't know what they do. It's highly secret. And I have to say, in 15 years, I've never heard a word about what happens on that weekend away. So I do hear that it's pretty good, though. So ultimately, what can I say to you? Ultimately, as a trainee, you can expect a wide variety of meaningful work in a collegiate environment. As I said earlier, we're not a back office support function. We're fully functioning, full service law firm, dealing only with the law on the island of Ireland. And you will have access to almost every corporate specialism you can possibly imagine through ourselves and through our Dublin office as well. I mean, we even have things like a cryptocurrency unit. So it's a huge learning opportunity for you. You will not find any closed doors or hierarchies. We work together to achieve the best outcomes for our clients and to help you develop your career. What we want from our trainees is are people who are engaged and people who want to stay with us, because ultimately, if we invest the time and resources into you, we want to invest that because you're going to be a long-term prospect with us, that you're going to want to stay with us for long term. We do offer internships. It's been very difficult with the pandemic. Our internships are 2 weeks. They were so popular that we were running out a double rollout of it, and then the pandemic hit. So we are going to try and get that up and running again, hopefully this year. So look, what I would say to you is look out on our website for details of how to apply. We do have an application form system. So you fill in your application form, you send us your CV. From there, we'll shortlist, and you will be invited usually to attend group interviews. And then we pare those down into individual one-to-one interviews to get to know you a little bit better. We do have an open day. Again, that's difficult with the pandemic. Ideally, what we do is we love to throw open our doors and see people face to face and give you an opportunity to meet us face to face and ask whatever questions you like. I'm not sure. We're hoping we'll be able to do that again this year, but we're sort of taking a rain check on it just to see how things pan out. So I'm very happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you for listening.
Rosemary, thank you. Thanks very much. That was a great insight into Arthur Cox, and I know that there has been a a number of questions coming through here. So we are at that time certainly, and I'll invite Andy back to field any questions at this stage. So I do see a couple of questions coming through. Andy, you've been quite proactive on the chat there and sort of beat me to it. But let me have a look and see if there's anything else coming through here. Okay. Yep. Jenna has asked Rosemary who is eligible to apply for the internships. Is it aimed at certain years, or is it?
We've had all year groups join us. We've had first years, which we were really surprised with, and they did so well. They were just absolutely blew us away, the first years. So anybody in any year at all can apply for the internship, and they're usually for 2 weeks. And they're like a little mini version of the trainee program. So we do the same thing. We rotate you around the different departments, try and get you exposure to as many different areas as we possibly can. But we've had great feedback from the internship program. Mm-hmm. It's summer. It's usually August. We usually roll it out in August.
Yeah, and that's similar for ourselves. It's basically open to anybody, but usually we tend to find second or third year students.
Yeah.
As a rule, but yes, it's all about just with Rosemary. It's all about giving you a sort of a bit of a sense of what the firm's like and the kind of work that we do, all crammed into a very short period. So sort of quite intense, but yeah, again, people seem to really get a lot out of those schemes. And just more broadly, I'd really recommend people to try and get involved in those at whatever firms, because again, it just gives you a bit of a sense of whether working in large firms isn't necessarily for everybody, or other people really like that sort of thing. But again, it's just getting a bit of a sense of that. And what I tend to find when it comes to people applying for training contracts, the more of a sense that you have about what interests you in a legal career and what interests you about a particular firm are the kind of things that we want to hear about. It's sort of it's kind of a given that everyone's going to have sort of good degrees and be sort of academically excellent, but it's everything around that we want to see.
You're absolutely right, Andy. I would agree with everything you said, and I think it's really good to put on your CV as well, and something for you to be able to talk about at interviews.
Perfect. Anyone else? Just if I've missed any questions, feel free to raise a hand and ask that question, or repopulate the chat if I've missed anything there. If not, I'm very conscious that we're heading in 4:45, and there's the sun is still shining outside. So if we did finish a few minutes earlier, that would probably be not such a bad thing. Can I invite Terry? Terry is our careers consultant. Many of the students will be familiar with Terry, but if I can ask Terry to maybe give some final thoughts and wrap up for us as well, Terry.
Yes, no problem. I'd like to first thank Darren, Andy and Rosemary from the Law Society, Carson, McDowell, TLT and Arthur Cox. It's very insightful, some of the information that you were passing across, and I'm sure the students will benefit greatly from that. From my point of view, especially hearing from Darren when he was talking about his aspects, he mentioned roles in the public service, and from working in the public service for quite a few years himself, it's good to hear that there is roles within that. Often we hear from the other areas within law and the other providers, so it's good to see that there is an alternative. It's also good to hear a wee bit of insight into the in-house solicitors, which, it's good to see that, firms like TransLink and stuff do recruit solicitors like that. Again, when it comes to roles within, say, TLT and Arthur Cox, this is what our students always want to hear. They always want to hear about the internships and all the positions and things that they can do. So it's great to see that there is opportunities out there. And it's also, I take this stage for students to turn around and say, get your pens out, write down those dates, and certainly go onto the websites and look and see what's on offer for you. I would always encourage students to avail of everything that's put in front of them because it looks good. It was good as well to hear the Law Society, especially Anne, when she talked about disclosure. And I think that's the key thing as well. I would always suggest to students as well, if there's anything that you're unsure about, disclose it, have the conversation, speak to people like Anne, Darren, or any other representative. It's better to get it up front at the beginning, then it's something to pop up later on, when maybe it hasn't more impactful in your career. So just I'd like to say just a general thank you from everybody in Careers, Employability and Skills. And I'd like to remind the students of the next session. Karl, do you have that slide up?
Yep.
And we have session 5, which is exploring routes to your qualification. And that's going to be tomorrow at 1 o'clock. What I will say is, folks, that Dr. Brian Jack will be taking that, and he will be talking about SQUE and the LPC. I believe we have another representative, Karl, don't we, as well at that stage?
Yeah, we do. We have a firm coming in tomorrow talking about qualifying in the Republic of Ireland as well. So we're going to sort of look tomorrow at qualifying in Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland. So, and then later on in the afternoon we'll look at the LPC and SQUE routes. So something for everyone in one capacity or another tomorrow. So tomorrow would be a very, very good time especially for our third years, but essentially for everybody, just to get a good overview of what the IPLS has to offer, what SQUE is, how it's changing, and so forth. And just for that, Karl, that's all I have to say, really. But thank you to everybody that has attended today. Yeah, and I could just reiterate that. Thank you very much, Anne from the Law Society, Darren from Carson, who I know has left us, Andy, thank you very much for the contribution, and Rosemary, thank you very much as well. Great to have the insights from the firms here, and glad to have your support, and looking forward to collaborating with you again very soon.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. It was great.
Thanks very much, folks. Look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care.
Good luck with your final exams, folks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, folks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.